The following Franklin Town Council meeting held on March 7th, 2023 is a production of The Reporter, Delaware County's leading news source.
Minutes from the previous meeting.
The regular meeting of the Franklin Town Board was called to order at 6 p.m. by Jeff Taggart, supervisor. Present were Jeff Taggart, Dwight Bruno, Donnie Smith, Garrett Sitz, Heather Ross, Mark Lang, Paul Warner, and Doug Weber. The minutes were read from the January 10th, 2023 meeting. Donnie Smith made the motion to approve the minutes with one correction. Heather Ross seconded the motion. Donnie said that he wasn't able to make the Franklin Kellogg Trust meeting last night. Jeff reported that the planning board issued a special use permit to Hebert Fence LLC on Olin Evans Road. They will use it for storage. There was also a discussion of a boundary line adjustment or minor subdivision on Rich Road. There were questions about parking in Treadwell for an art gallery. Mark said they don't have much going on, so they are working in the shop. Jeff suggested that they might sell a sander that they have out back, but Mark said that he would like to hold on to it. Doug said code enforcement is still extremely quiet. He sent the model of Airbnb rules and regulations to the board members to look over. He will also send the rules and regulations to the attorney and see if she thinks his suggestions will be viable. Jeff has the contract with the Delaware County Planning Board. He said nothing has changed from prior years. The fee is $3,500 a year. Garrett made the motion to approve the contract. Donnie Smith seconded the motion. Jeff had the shared services with the New York State DOT paperwork. Mark said he isn't interested in doing that with them. Garrett Sitz made the motion to go into executive session for legal matters at 6:30 p.m. Heather Ross seconded the motion. The board returned from executive session at 7:35 p.m. With nothing further to come before the board, the meeting was adjourned.
Any additions or corrections? I have a motion.
I'll make the motion. Accept minutes as read.
Second. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Okay. Donnie, I guess you're the first on reports.
Lori called me and I spoke with her and she basically gave me a fill-in on basically what had happened at the meeting. Basically, they are moving into the new facility, getting things organized, and things are looking pretty good. They got basically an approval for the handicap ramp as well as the bathroom, and other than that, they're just moving along. So, looking very optimistic for the next year. So,
Good.
just good.
Yep. Okay. Highway super, the deputy. How are we doing, Jamie?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Mark didn't have much. Bids are gonna go out next month, just like they normally do, so we'll open them then. Nothing new,
Okay.
so.
On the bids, how do they get the paperwork for a bid? They just have to call the town and apply for it? Or, cause I talked to Reinhardt's, and they said
I think it's in
It'll
the
be in
ad.
the
Right, it's in the
paper.
They
ad.
have to
Okay.
contact Mark at the highway phone number to get a
So I'll have
copy
to
of the bid,
All right.
but they never call.
Right,
Just so you
right.
know.
I know
It's the
that
same
they
ones
haven't
every year,
before,
Every year.
but I know I talked to them last week. And they said, yeah, they'd be interested, get us the paperwork. Well, who's gotta get to them, I'm not sure, but,
Right.
or if
Well,
they
it's
gotta
like-
If they want
call,
the
Well,
business,
yeah,
they might
that's-
wanna,
might wanna call.
yeah.
If they
Okay.
want, exactly, if they want the business, they can do a little bit of the
That's
work,
right,
so.
yep. No, I agree. I wasn't sure. I thought that's how it was handled, but
Yep,
just so I can give them a call and tell them,
so, but nothing new as far as different bids, just same as usual, so.
so could he get that at any time if he, if I call him like
Once-
tomorrow?
I think once he advertises it,
Once he
yes.
advertises, okay,
Yeah.
gotta wait for the
So I would
advertisement.
say by next week or the week after it'll be in, so. it can be
Okay.
2 weeks for.
It'll be in the Walt Reporter, so I'll I'll tell him that too.
Yep.
Look for the Walt Reporter, the
Yep.
applications or whatever will be in there.
Yep.
Thank you.
The only other thing we had, Mark spoke to you guys about radio systems. I don't know, it was last meeting or the
Mhm.
meeting before that, so, we had the one gentleman from Motorola come over and meet with us again. Dwight and Donnie had some questions for him. I guess he answered them the best he could. He did get us a quote back for what you asked for. I can pass that around to you guys for you to see, and then I guess move forward from there, whatever you think, so.
Did he have just one quote or a couple options?
It was the one, we had already done all the quotes that Mark had presented before and we had spoke about. This one was just the one that you guys had asked for that day.
Try and lower the cost
Yes.
overall and
Yep,
give us, because discussing with you, it felt like it was possible that we could reduce the number of the immediate
Right.
radios to be purchased and
the
lower the cost, the initial cost, so.
The original cost was basically if they come in and did everything, you know.
Replaced everything.
Yep, so it was kind of to show you,
That was a shocker stick.
yes,
sticker on that
basically,
one.
so, you know, it should be no more than that, so.
Oh,
But if you want, I'll just pass this around and take a look at it. This is just for the 12 units and the base station, so.
Which 12 units were, just refresh my memory,
Trucks.
just the trucks?
Yep, trucks and 2 pieces of equipment, so,
Okay, and those are that's for the fixed units in
Yes.
the vehicles?
yep.
Okay.
And then replacing the base station,
And the base station?
yes.
Okay.
With the antenna on the good wire.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
That
So as the time went on, we could
add
keep,
to it,
keep
yes.
adding to the
Yep.
system and.
And just remember that that price does not include the yearly contracts for,
maintenance and service.
tower rental, I
rental.
guess that's what we call it, repeater rental.
I don't know if that's what they call it, that's
That's
what we
what- that's
call
what we're
the
gonna call it,
current
so.
What
carrier.
carrier?
So,
What was, is that?
that is.
Comparable to what we're paying now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so that wouldn't really be a
No,
added
it
expense,
is-
we're
it's a
paying that
wash,
whether we
so.
Yeah, it's
change
basically-
services or
Yep.
not, okay.
Yep,
And then Mark also mentioned that if we'd have to pull the antenna down or buy a new antenna and have a man put it on the new tower was 5,000 just to get the man to climb,
correct.
and then whatever it cost it was to have it, so we could be looking $5,000 to $10,000 just to use our old system.
Just to
So-
utilize the old system.
It would be an
Not-
upgrade because of
not
new
that good,
antenna,
so.
but not,
And that's kind of why we were discussing, I was talking with Jamie, that maybe we can, what could we do to get closer to $10,000? So that way, we'd be stuck with that expense no matter what we did, so that's kind of why we kind of came up with this
Yep,
quote to kind of,
no handheld, this is all truck,
not,
not, in the
not,
initial,
not in
on
this
that
price, so the original one, yes, it was.
Right, it was, right, a multi.
But, like I told them, this could be a starting point, and then, you know, in a few months, we acquire 1 or 2 more
Right,
here and
right.
there, so that would ease the cost a little bit
Right,
over time,
right,
so.
yep, yep. Right now, the main ones are the ones in the trucks,
Yes, yep,
and the grader.
yeah,
and
like the
backhoe.
grader and back, or the grader and excavator,
Yeah.
so just,
Right, yep, yep,
um,
yep. When you're loading or anything like that,
yes, yep,
communication,
yep,
instead of hand signals.
yeah, yeah, we still do a lot of hand signals. but
Okay.
Everybody does.
Everybody understands most of them.
That's FAA approved.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, so, I mean, if that's something the board is willing to move forward with, that's something we can do.
I mean, the thing with this, these are new radios, we did talk about,
All
the
those.
used quote was,
Half, the
yeah,
equipment's
like
half.
21, somewhere's around that, so,
Yeah.
these, his name Jim?
Yes,
Jim,
Jim.
he said that they had a 5-year warranty on them, where
On
the
the equipment.
used, even though it said the used were very durable, there was a 6-month, so,
Right,
I don't know, it kinda took that into consideration on the bid end of it,
so that's, the 5-year warranty is like a maintenance agreement? included?
If something
So
goes
if
wrong
something
with
goes
it,
wrong with,
we
they,
just call them up and they
fix
give us
it,
another
okay.
one.
That's what he said. If
Right.
it was.
if there was an issue, they'd fix it.
Yep, if it was 5 years,
Okay,
you'd
that-
call us and,
Yep.
and we're gonna
That helps.
rectify it, so.
Yep. Yep,
I thought that was encouraging when you look at it versus
Yeah.
6 months, there's a
Oh,
little
yeah.
insurance there.
a year and 4.5 years of maybe,
Yeah, and this company, like the schools on them, a few of the neighboring towns are on it. I
Mhm.
think eventually you're gonna see more of them go
Right.
that way, but,
right,
and,
right.
and
But we
cover.
could also buy used ones to fill in some of the gap too. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, that,
Yeah,
I mean,
we
for,
could,
you could, that'd be, you could buy for twice the money, and if you have,
yeah.
to try a couple, and if they work out fine, you buy a couple more.
We
you know, just
demoed
to
some units.
Save money.
That we
Like,
went
there's
all
one
over
thing
town.
we did talk
and there
about,
was
like
no
with the
issues.
broom or something like that, being it's not as often out,
Used.
either buy a used unit or, something like you were saying, it's not like it's the excavator or
Right.
that, the backhoe or
Main
grader
use.
or
I
something.
mean, you gotta remember that the current system that we have has been built over, what, the last 25, 30 years? You know, the
Built and
inventory,
repaired
so,
and added to and
Yep.
taken away.
you know, and as we bought equipment, we just got
Mhm.
more pieces and added
Yep.
to them.
But that's kind of what we talked about,
Yep.
is
Yep.
keep moving forward with it, so.
Well, we'll go ahead, and when we get to, new business, we'll bring it up then.
Okay. Yep.
Whether we approve it or not, or talk more about it.
Yep.
Okay, is there anything else,
Nope,
Jamie?
that's it.
That's it? Code enforcement officer, we got your report?
Yeah, just going back and forth with Cheryl, I'm sending her different towns,
Okay.
and kind
Yep.
of and cherry picking from them.
Yep.
You know, and asking her if it's possible for us to do,
The cherry
or how to
picker.
do, how to do the cherry picking, yeah.
Right,
You
right.
know, so I have a phone call with her tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah, cause I talked to her yesterday, and
yes,
she was hoping to make the meeting, but she had a previous engagement that fell through. She
Yeah.
wanted to come and, introduce a person that would be taking over her position for the town. I can't tell you the guy's name, she told me,
Nick,
but
I think it is, isn't it?
could be Nick. But he's worked for Sanford, town of Sanford and stuff, and they've got the wind turbine thing going on and stuff, and she thinks he might be a good fit for the town. But she'd wanna bring him and introduce him and,
Which that was
Go from there.
considered a
Yeah,
good
yeah.
introduction.
yep,
well, their attorney who worked on the other issues I had, the code enforcement issues, he was fantastic,
oh, good.
yeah.
It might be the same guy, I don't.
It isn't,
probably
no,
not.
no, but he was very good,
He was good.
yeah,
Okay.
very good,
Yeah.
yeah, very helpful.
Good, good.
So, yeah, so, well, there's a couple things, I'm asking her about if we can, like the grandfathering, she said New York State won't allow grandfathering, but you can split it up, so you say, okay, you can't, say you can't have the short-term rental, okay? But you can institute new rules, new regulations. She split it up.
Oh.
You split it between code enforcement and zoning,
So
and
then-
that's how you get around that, yeah,
Yep, so you could basically implement it
yes,
by going
Mhm.
to zoning rules rather
Yeah.
than,
right.
okay.
And then, I showed you a thing with town of Franklin, the way they define a hotel.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
basically, every one of these would,
it would fit that description too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's an interesting
I like
discussion.
Oleana's policy,
Yeah.
especially considering the baseball situation, and I know that that's also being entertained in our town, so I know Oleana takes that into consideration, but it's pretty well regulated,
It is.
and that's, I really did kind of and I do think there's maybe some modification, but their baseline on that, I thought
Oh,
was.
it's very good.
It's a very
It's
good.
very
program,
good, right,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
The only thing that I wasn't comfortable with is when an LLC owns it.
Yeah.
Out-of-town
I-
LLC.
Yeah.
So I was speaking with Cheryl about that.
Because it did kind of open a bit of a window up there.
Yeah, and she suggested something, but For some reason, I don't think we're allowed to do that. But I'll talk to her about that tomorrow,
Okay.
her suggestion. I believe they passed legislation against it, but,
Oh,
Yeah.
surprise.
yeah, but I have to double check that before I speak with her.
Right, okay. On the planning board, they had 3 boundary line adjustments last Thursday. Mike was involved in 2 of them, and then the other one was,
Just an extension.
Mike Carroll. He absorbed a 3-acre lot into his 100-acre lot. So that's what, that was a business and pretty much all the discussion, planning board. Okay, now we'll go to old business. Fire EMS tax exemption. We had that from the, I had a copy of it. Did everybody get a copy of that somewhere?
At one point, I don't know if they
Right.
still have it.
I mean, we've got a, I see, Sonia brought up too, other towns are having special,
Public hearing.
public hearings on it, about it. And it's, I think the fire department should be involved,
Well, I
because
would
they're the ones who
agree.
are gonna dictate who basically qualifies and who doesn't, right? That's what I understand. Because somebody's gotta, you know, you can be a volunteer fireman, but if you don't go to the fires or participate, you know, the exemption is meant for ones that,
Very active.
are very active or very or whatever. And the same thing with EMS.
Which we discussed that, and Mark stated that that was something that was kind of being talked about amongst most of the fire departments already.
I think so,
I
and
think they keep good track of who is,
who's active,
Who was
who's
active
And
and
dealing
who
with this,
isn't.
because they've been
Yep.
discussing this and, you know,
Yep.
level of determining what would be qualified as active or just a membership, you know.
Yep. And what percentage should you put on it for activity? You know, if you go to 25% of the, you know, where's the cutoff, what qualifies for a, you know, active member? Yes,
I think that should be kind of, maybe the fire department should contribute that kind of information.
and we, you know, and we, yeah, we've got trouble that's, that they got the radios fixed or the paging or the, what are they called, they got that fixed yet? Electrons or whatever, so they do get called out. I don't know. I know there's not.
What's the matter with their radios?
For the longest time, all their signals were quote unquote going above the valley. So nobody was getting
Here in
paged
Hamlet.
in the hamlet.
That's kind of what,
And
that thing they talked about,
they
right?
talked
Yeah.
about, and it had been,
I almost think they did get that installed.
they were gonna put a tower here on the firehouse, I think. I don't know where it's gonna end up being, whether it ever got done or not. I don't
Lisa
know.
mentioned to me one Kellogg meeting that there was 2 other modes that they get notices of, but not everybody has them modes. So that's why this town was
Right,
so
well,
important.
yeah, cause I know sometimes, I know 911, there's a, they put it through your phone. You know, text in the middle of the night, if you don't have your phone turned on or whatever, active, you know, you're gonna miss it anyway, and
That's why they have the pagers too.
that's why that, and the pagers are,
Yeah.
you know, and that's what, the pagers, I don't think they were able to use here.
Okay.
Maybe in Franklin, but Treadwell wasn't getting paid, you know, toned out. Is that paged?
Mhm.
Yeah.
They weren't getting toned out, so they didn't answer too many calls, but maybe they got it all fixed now.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So do we wanna look at a public hearing, or do we wanna get more information from the fire department, just to get their feeling on it, whether it's,
I think we should, and see what their participation wants to be in this.
right, yeah. No, I think that'd be, right, get old
'Cause I
Tom
think their
Horton.
information is gonna be pretty relevant to us, I mean, you know. Are we gonna have to set the guidelines for it, Jeff, as far as, or is that something the
I-
state has established?
That, I don't know, with the paperwork that I got, I didn't see any, you know, you have to participate 50% of the calls or something like that. I don't know if that's something that townships could do, or the fire department wants to do, or,
You have no way to do that, you have no way to keep track of that.
well, they would
The
though.
fire, well, exactly.
And, but that's what I mean, the fire department, how would they wanna have it handled?
Be
I
up to
mean,
them.
And that's where, that's where it's gotta, the communication between the fire commissioners maybe.
And it was a
Town board.
percentage of, it was a relief, it wasn't a complete exemption.
Right, no, it's,
Yeah, it's a relief, yeah.
and that's just on the residents, I think, too, not on the whole parcel. I think, but that's something
I
that,
mean, the only thing about it that scares me, and I'm not a fireman anymore, but if all the towns give out these exemptions, which is fine,
somebody else.
the state already gives out an exemption on their taxes. If the state finds out all these towns are doing it, the state may take their exemption away for your income taxes. Then people who don't own property, the fire department members that don't own property will no longer get, right now they'd be able to choose, which is fine. But
No, it's true.
if a lot of them don't own property, and if the state decides, well, all the towns are doing these exemptions, we're not gonna do it, then that could be a problem. That's a fear of mine. But you can't really predict what the state's gonna do.
It's a good point.
And you're also sharing, if you bring it into the town, that exemption is being shared with fewer taxpayers. Where if it's a statewide exemption, which they get right now, they all qualify for it now, that amount of money is spread out over everybody who pays income tax in the state versus
Hired or
just
volunteer
people
or
in this
hired.
town.
Services,
That's just something to think about with any exemption.
but I think it would be a good thing to talk with the commissioners,
I agree.
get a meeting
Yeah,
together
absolutely.
and see what they're,
I would talk to them
Good,
before you
bad.
set a public hearing, so
Right.
they may have to do
Yeah.
some preparation. too.
right, yeah, oh yeah, I agree. You get to the cart, don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I can get a hold of Tom, see when we can get together with some of the fire commissioners
They have a meeting next Tuesday night.
next Tuesday night, okay? Yep. Is it 7? Okay. Okay, that's the only thing on old business, is anybody else got any old business? We'll go on new business. Cheryl's not here and Eric's not here either.
Took care of that.
Then we can go to open discussion and questions then.
That guy's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah,
Was
you
he
gotta write
raising
it
his-
down though.
Was he
Someone's gotta
raising
read
his
it.
hand?
Somebody's gotta read it.
It should probably go in the minutes that Dwight and Donnie looked at the books, and they audited the books.
Yes.
And Dwight and I audited
The
the
court.
court
For
too.
today. And
Yep.
we're gonna need a resolution for petty or cash.
Right, yep, that's new
Postal.
business, yep. Yeah, Chris, said she has no petty cash accounts for postage or anything like that. She would like
Neither
to,
does Sonia, do you?
I do, this is strange, I have $63.35 as my petty cash.
well,
Usually she gets posted, Sonia contacts me.
But
Right,
what she
right.
has right now is she has to mail a certified letter.
certified letters and stuff.
Cause she asked me about it, I said if I was me, I'd just use my own money
That's
and
what
put
you
in a
do, and then
voucher.
turn in.
Well,
She said she could get by with $20. If she had $20
That's what
Yeah.
Walton has is
and
cash
if she
fund for
has to
that.
do something, she could.
And whether it's, and what we told
She
them,
can
we,
get by with
that
20,
we
she
were-
can probably get by without it, but
Well,
auditors
that-
hate
yeah.
petty cash, just so you
Yeah.
know.
What's that?
Auditors hate
Hate
petty
cash.
cash, just so you know. But Jen seemed to make out okay. They just,
I basically
Yeah.
use mine for change for taxes
Right.
and stuff, so.
I mean, we could probably work something out, but then she's gotta keep a record of that.
and she
that
would have
will get
receipts for
audited,
everything
and-
that,
Yeah.
when she spends it, she'd have receipts for it. Whether it's that, she would just thought that if she could, she'd like that.
So she's gonna have to report on a regular basis.
Did she
of
say
how
what
much
the
she has.
certified letters are for?
It's some
Um,
fines or something,
it
so
was
from the
for,
court, whatever, some paperwork that,
Small claims.
right, small claims court.
Small
she's-
claims, see,
and she-
the person filing always used to have to be the one that added that up.
Well, that may
So
be
maybe
after the
now
fact.
they front it, and
Get it
then
back in the end.
they get paid back.
She said it's the first one they've had since she's been
I,
clerk,
I
It's been
always,
very
I
slow
always
on
paid
that
them
part.
money up.
and she's
They had
happy
to pay
about
the-
that.
They had to pay the fee along with the postage for the certified, and.
I'm sure,
and that was how I handled it, but
Right.
if this is how she's comfortable, I guess that's,
well, that's how she works really in the other courts that she works in. They have, but I mean, if Sonia's got it, they're probably around most of the time together and, you know, how could, it's just that's the only thing she was wondering about.
Right.
And
We
that's the
have a
only
meeting
question.
every month, so if she used a credit card and turned in the receipt, it would get paid before she had to pay it.
Paid a bill or had a bill.
If she wanted to do it that
Okay.
way. Or you can set, you
Well, I
go ahead
told
and
her-
set this up,
Well,
but
I told her you'd have
It
to
makes
have
a lot
an invoice,
Yeah.
you know, to, you know, prove that, you know, for an invoice for the 20 to get it started. And I'm not, I know petty cash and stuff, the state, you know, they're worried about nickels and dimes. When
That's
they
what I
ought
do
to
with
be
my,
more
with my
concerned.
registered mail. I sent out a lot of, okay, I get a receipt, and then they, you know, then they end up with blow my car and then I throw them away, but.
Right, I mean, that was the only thing Chris had questions about. You know, she was-
Mark told me, don't
okay.
have petty cash in your court, he was really, but
He was bad.
he was pretty by.
we got along how many years without it?
Yeah, okay, that was the only thing she asked about. And she doesn't, other towns have it, she said, and that's, or, no. The other towns that use it as a change, for making
For
change,
making change, I think she said, yeah.
is what it's listed under. But just, that was the only thing, she was very,
We sent him across the
very
street.
pleasant.
I inherited my petty cash, so.
You did, I did, they go and need change and see,
You're gonna have to go across the street, we don't have petty cash here, you know, so
Mhm.
they'd run across the street and get what they needed and come back and.
That was about it from the court, right?
that was, yeah, everything looked pretty
Okay.
complete, and,
I will entertain a resolution to accept the audit of the town books and the court's books in one resolution. Would that be, because they both got done between meetings. And both were approved.
Yeah.
Found to be fine. Can we do it in one? I would think, so.
I don't see one.
yeah.
I can always type them up separate, even if you do it in one thing here,
okay.
right?
Oh, if you want to do it separate, go ahead. Have a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Garrett seconds it. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, I guess now we'll be going in executive session for labor, reasons on labor talks.
I'll make a motion to that.
Jeff, did you wanna do anything for you guys,
With the
the
radio.
radios?
We should probably
You want to
discuss
discuss
that
that
a little
executive
bit
session?
in executive
Yeah.
session,
We
because
could discuss
we're
that.
talking about three different price
Yep.
things here, and you're gonna stick around? with
Yes,
it? Yeah,
yes.
okay, 'cause that way we can discuss a couple things
Yep.
and then make a decision afterwards.
That's fine.
But there's a few things that should probably be battened around
Yep.
and then, cause that way if they decide to change contract, this, you know,
Mhm.
what's.
Is it,
Yep,
come
that's
out
fine.
and make a
right now,
motion.
is it work, what we have is per se working?
Mhm.
What,
Mm,
the radio?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, go that far, but,
right, okay, I was just wondering if we could make a decision next month at the board meeting, that was my only thought.
I do have one question, and I don't mean to be, I know we talked about a lot, but there's just
Mhm.
something that keeps twirling in my head. And that is, there's probably an issue with the antenna. I think there was pretty much agreement that
Yeah.
as far as a major portion of the problem is likely to be associated with the feed to the antenna, the cable from the antenna, you know, to
Right.
the base
And-
unit, et
and
cetera.
not just at our shop, also on the tower itself,
And
the current
possibly on the
tower.
Correct.
Yes,
So, you know, since in any case, we're gonna have to replace the antenna at the shop
yes,
as well as the cable.
yes.
if we could document that the repeater that's mounted on the existing tower works, and we have a new antenna, it would be nice to see what happens when you try to run the system like that.
But you're two
What
different,
doesn't
you're
work?
two different systems though.
No. What I'm saying is, everything that you have now that uses the repeater on the existing tower with the existing transceivers and the existing transmitters, handheld and otherwise.
Right.
If all that is work, so in other words, if you're getting a signal from the garage, okay?
No,
No, listen,
no,
just
even,
hear me
what
out.
I understand what you're saying,
Okay,
but the base station, the antenna, all it does is that base station radio. We can be out front on 357 with any one of the trucks and not hit the tower,
right,
okay? So that antenna is not gonna solve that.
right, but what I'm
Is,
saying,
so we're not gonna be able to change the antenna and prove the repeater works, because it doesn't.
you don't know if the.
Yes, I do, because
No, you don't. You just
I'm not
listen to
saying
me.
from the base station, I'm
Forget-
saying from the trucks. And we don't, the base station is,
What, would you listen for just a second?
I would
What I'm
love to.
saying- Okay, what I'm saying is this, is that the antenna in the garage is shot,
Yes,
okay? The cable is shot,
yes.
okay? So that in and of itself is gonna mean that nothing's gonna work with the repeater, even if.
No, just the base station.
No. If the repeater on the existing tower, wherever that is, if that works, if that's functional, all right? And the antenna at the garage is not working, then you're correct. It's, forget the stuff in the different vehicles and stuff like that, but you're not gonna get any signal out to the repeater in order to get a return signal to the other radios.
No, that's just for the base station. That has
That's
nothing,
right.
nothing to do with any of the trucks
I
at all.
understand,
or
I
equipment,
understand,
so.
but what I'm saying is if, let's just say this, okay? If you replace the antenna with a functional antenna and functional cable, okay? And the base station is currently working, that radio is working, then signal should get out from that to the repeater on the tower.
Yes,
Okay, if it reaches the repeater on the tower, then the repeater on the tower will fire back a return signal to another radio on that frequency, okay? If that happens, it means that the radio's working and the repeater is working because it's returning a signal. If it doesn't work, then it's a repeater problem. Since you're not responsible for the repeater, the people who you paid, what, $3,000 for, they're the ones who should be responsible to see that the repeater is working. So I'm just saying to
Right.
diagnose what the issue is, then you'd know you have a functional unit in the garage, because, again, you get a signal out with a signal back, you've got a new antenna and a new feed, and now we get to the stuff in the other vehicles, et cetera. If you just individually have to go through them, if there's a bad antenna in one of them, then you're not gonna get the same response, right?
Right. Just so you know,
Yeah.
90% of the time, we're not at the base station. We're all in vehicles,
Right,
and we're not using that base station.
right.
And we can't talk to each other with the tower, with the repeater, from truck to truck. I don't leave the
Right.
base station out of it.
Okay.
The repeater does not work.
Right,
So
Okay.
But
the
the-
tower is bad up on the hill,
Yeah.
is what it, all
All of them. The
That's
one
the
in
one
North
up on
Franklin, the one on
Kugler, the
Johnson
old
Hill.
tower, right? Not the
Yeah.
new
and
tower.
North Franklin also.
Yeah.
so you know
North
that,
Hill.
you know that
Yeah,
those
up on that
towers
cell
are
very-
bad.
Yes,
Limited
I know
service.
they're not, I know they're not working. Do I know they're bad? No, I'm not.
Well, if
I
they're
don't
not
run the
working, they're not good, right?
They're not working.
Okay, so if they're not working, who found that out?
Well, we did a
Just-
year ago.
Yeah, they just don't work, so if we don't have coverage.
What
we
they're
can't-
saying is when
there's a-
they're talking
No,
truck to truck, and let's say they're in North Franklin, and they should be able to talk to truck no matter what happens at the shop.
That's correct.
And they're not able to.
Right, okay, but again, how are the antennas in the trucks? How is all the, you've never replaced anything in any of those vehicles, or anything in the garage, or
No, we have
anything
not
in the
garage,
repeaters.
so that's
And
whatever
99%
we
of the 99% of the time, the problems are with cables and antennas. So, all I'm saying is that, I mean, just looking at this, and it's 30, it's almost $4,000 for an antenna and a new base unit. If it was just the antenna and the cables, you could keep your base unit. And
That's,
No, it's
that's
not digital.
if we wanted to stay with the current carriers,
you were talking about digital versus analog.
yes.
So if you wanted to go from analog, if you wanted to go from analog to digital, okay, you'd have to have a new one. But,
Great.
again, it would just be, in a perfect world, if it was just antennas and cables, there could be a tremendous amount of
If they
savings.
worked and we had coverage, that'd be great. I'd climb up there, replace the cable myself, it wouldn't bother me,
Right,
but
right.
they don't work. The coverage that we got when we demoed these units, and they were just used units, was 100% all over town. Any place we went, we had coverage. We could reach the base station, we could reach other trucks.
Right.
I went to different towns, we could reach out.
Right.
There's a bigger area coverage because we're hitting more towers with this
Right.
new system.
And that's a
Yep.
totally different argument, Jamie. I
Right.
understand what you're saying, but the reason you could do that is because you had a new antenna with new cables and a new machine. Okay, that's why you could hit it.
No, they were all used, but
But,
we do have a new pickup, and we
Yeah.
do have a new backhoe.
okay,
And no, we didn't put brand new radios in, but that company
Yeah.
came in, installed the radio with new antennas, with new coaxes, and they don't work any better.
but when did they do that?
You guys paid for it
They
at the
just
last
paid
meeting,
for it.
so.
Backhoe came.
Last summer.
This
last
past
spring.
summer, the
October,
truck didn't
wasn't
get
it?
here
But they
till
just
this
got
fall.
installed this.
They got done at the
last
same
month.
time when the truck,
And when the truck came.
And they put new antennas and
new
radios,
coaxes.
Yep.
and new coax in those.
Mhm.
And you still couldn't hit the repeater.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so the next question is, I know you think I'm beating this, but I just need to understand it. I mean, we're not talking a few bucks here. We're talking, we're up around 20 grand. So you're thinking the repeater, see, I guess what I don't, what are we paying that other company $3,000 for?
Well, we're trying not to.
I know you're trying not to, but what did they say when I'm just curious, just as a taxpayer.
Well, one
wondering-
time they said, well, we forgot to turn it on. That's what they said one time to me.
Well, I'd say I forgot to pay it too, because it's not working.
They say they'll look into it, that's about it, so. When they get there, they get there, so.
Well, I guess if that's.
I
the way
think
it
it's
is,
worth
that's
it
the way
to
it
move
is.
to a new system or new people,
Well,
if
yeah,
nothing else, I
right.
think, and,
Right.
and if dialogue is working, I think it's worth it giving Jim a shot, in my opinion.
I have no problem with that at all. I just wanna make sure that we're not taking either, that we're not spending $20,000
10% reduction from the 50.
when, if we have functional equipment,
That's 10%.
and it's just a matter of turning a few screws or replacing a few cables or whatever. That's my thing. It's real easy to go in and say, if your truck's not running,
Yeah, I think.
well, you could fix it by putting a whole new engine in, but you'd probably do a little diagnostic and figure out, well, maybe it's a wire somewhere or something like that. That's basically what I'm
We've been
getting at.
piecing these together and, babying them quite a while, so.
The beginning of the downfall was when the FCC split the frequency. And every one of our radios, the power was turned down on. And the radios that we couldn't turn the power down on, we had to get rid of and had to buy new radios to replace. And now they have half the power that they had before. And that was the beginning of the end of that system.
Well, that's interesting. I spoke to the FCC a couple months ago and asked them, they said we have nothing to do with, they said.
Well, maybe it wasn't the FCC, maybe it's
It
this
was a-
company
it was
that
a
you've been
company,
giving
that's-
money to
that's-
every year.
That's probably what it was. I mean, it's usually a company thing, but I mean, just as a matter of fact, the FCC doesn't make any money on, they don't sell frequencies. They'll broaden the band, or they'll say because people are overlapping, if you were interfering with an ambulance service or a police service, they may say, okay, you gotta cut your power down, or you gotta go to a different frequency or something like that, but anyway, just questions, again, when you see a bill like this, you think, well, what's the best
To me,
way to
it's,
go at it?
it's cheap insurance for, on the town's part, to get a system that works better, because, I mean, God forbid something happens to an employee,
No one's arguing
somebody
that.
on the side of the road needs to call in, I just think it's a
Well-
huge safety issue, so.
And efficiency, if we
Yeah.
can call back and say, this is what we need when somebody's already on their way, and we can get them to grab it and bring it, instead they have to come all the way to us and say, hey, we're broke down, we need this.
Hey, we're on the same team with that, absolutely. Again, my question is, do you have to spend 20 grand, or can you do it with 10 grand? That's my thing. And none of us here are, electronic engineers to know every angle of everything as far as the transmitters and the cables, et cetera, et cetera. So it's worth a discussion, that's all I'm saying. And maybe it's gonna be 20 grand, maybe that's what it'll be. But it just seems that, and I'm not trying to be negative to Tri-County or anybody else, but they have a product to sell, and, that's what they do. And we have something to, business to run through government, and, we're trying to do it as reasonably as possible, but not cutting into safety or communications or anything else. That's not the reason for the questions I'm bringing up. Again, it just seems like, okay, it's broken, we'll replace everything. That's the impression I get, so that's why I'm asking what I'm asking, not trying to be difficult. So as you saw, I walked out with a 5-watt transceiver in Franklin, and I got Colliersville. And that's all because of antenna and, very
That's all
basic
well
stuff.
and good, but that doesn't mean you could get every part of Franklin.
Oh, yeah, I can, absolutely. Paul, believe me, I can. I
Well,
can go
think
way
there's
outside
probably-
of Franklin too.
I think there's a bit of an issue though, if the backhoe and the truck aren't working the way it should, there's gotta be something more than, cause that's new antenna, you said, and new coax. right?
Yes, it's all brand new, so.
And neither one of them is working sufficiently, so.
So
If the
that's,
system's not willing, if the company's not willing to back us, we'll continue to pay them for nothing.
If we,
yeah,
what Dwight's talking about is a base unit and the antenna on the building, is that what he's
Yeah.
basically
Part of
talking
it,
about?
yeah.
And that's part of the new program anyway?
Yes.
Well,
Would it be
well, the
suffice?
new, well, cause originally when we were discussing, we thought maybe they would overlap.
But they're not
The
compatible.
system can't technically overlap. But the guys were saying that if they were working at close proximity, and that's why we talked about reducing the number of radios that we purchased. So in other words, like, say they're running up in North Franklin, so you got the trucks running from a ways away, and either one of those guys are in the grader or in the excavator, and they need to talk to the flagman. Well, they could punch on the old system if the flagman had the old. And the same with, like, say a broom, okay, we could do that. But you would want the bulk of the people that were running from a long ways away, like with the trucks, to have the new system, so that way when they were talking in the excavator or the grader, they could communicate with them so that they all were doing what they needed them to do, and we could cover the distance, like they were saying. We gotta, something broke, coming past the shop, swing in and pick it up. And that's why we were talking, because the present system is not reliable for them to do that. But the present system, we wouldn't have to use their tower and repeater because they'd be close enough, correct? That you guys could feed, like if you had an old style, the older system radio in the excavator along with the new system. When he needed to talk to the flagman, he could key on the old radio and talk to the flagman. But the new system would need the distance to get a hold of the trucks and let them know what was needed or where they were at.
That part is a temporary solution until you changed over to everything.
So in other words, it was
eventually,
a, as a way to lower the initial cost, so to buy a few less radios, and then with time, finish transitioning over. And that was the purpose. I mean, it's all part of more of what we can talk about, rather you wanna dive into the whole system all at once, and at what level you wanna do that. And that's part of what I think we need to discuss in executive session. But we can use part of the old system, it's very unreliable at distance. And when those
It
guys
works
are out
well on the job site, but not.
That's right.
close to, that's right, yes.
Back to the-
You
See each
see-
other
yeah.
most of the time, it works.
You've seen Flagwood, they'll have a radio and, you know,
Yep.
cars backed up, they'll get on there, talk to the next one, and you can see the person down the road. But if they're a mile down the road, around a curve
Right.
or over a hill, it's not gonna get to
Not
them,
gonna
and
get
then you
there,
need something else.
Right.
But, you know, and
Yep.
I don't know how many of those little radios you guys, how many of them?
We don't use them only for flagging, so.
Okay, so that's not something that has to be replaced right off the bat, or?
No, and that, we took
Probably
that
bring
right
it
out of
away.
that, so.
Okay, so, yeah. Yeah, I think, personally, I think that, you know, maybe we just ought to talk about it a little bit more before just
Mm.
throwing the gauntlet down and, you know,
Well, there was a motion proposed to go in executive session.
Yeah.
And Garrett made, I don't think we had a second,
I'll
so
second
we
that.
can hash some more or
yeah, whatever.
get to more of our other business. So we have a first and a second, all in favor? Carried.
To subscribe or advertise, call 607-464-4009.